Hi, this is Bill Hader.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Bill Hader. Bill Hader.
Welcome to another episode of We Hard Hater. I am not Jeff. I am Deej Behrens.
And I'm your co-host and poster boy for Restless Penis Syndrome, Casey Killingsworth.
Yeah, so today we're doing Season 32, Episode 15 from March 17th, 2007. This is the second appearance of Julia Louis-Dreyfus and the musical guest of I was going to say Soul Patrol. I have Soul Patrol in the brain because I think there was a podcast I was listening to last week about reference American Idol, and that was basically the fan group, one of the contestants, but that's not important.
Oh, Taylor Hicks,
Taylor Hicks.
The one American Idol contestant Weird Al parodied.
Yes. That was from the podcast Weird Algorithm.
I should really try listening to that sometime.
Yeah, very good podcast. It basically goes, you can start from the beginning because it goes through everything that he's done chronologically. They've just in the part where they're just reaching the end of Straight Outta Linwood. This is the second appearance of Julia Louis-Dreyfus on the show, having last been in season 31. She is back for this year to promote the New Adventures of Old Christine, which apparently, before Bill got SNL, and he was in LA auditioning during pilot season, that he actually auditioned for this show. But as we knew from there, he did not get that. But he moved on to bigger and better things.
And it's good, too, because I can't really imagine him in a typical 3-camera network sitcom. Sketch comedy fits him like a glove, and more dramatic acting, we know that. But I can't really picture him in a laugh track sitcom for some reason.
Yeah, but Mini Project was more of a single camera style rather than the traditional live studio audience, which Christine was. Bill had a very good episode this one. He appears in 4 different sketches, which we will go over first, including one very important premiere. So the first one we have is a commercial. Well, what turns out to be a commercial, as Casey had referenced in his introduction, talking about restless penis syndrome. Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Sudeikis she's expecting a big confession that she's cheated on him, but he tries to pull this off as he has a disease called restless penis syndrome. And as things go along, first his doctor comes in the room, who played by Keenan. The next part, we have Bill appearing at the front as the spokesperson as to what RPS is all about.
If you suffer from restless penis syndrome, you're not alone. RPS severely affects the lives of millions of Americans.
What is happening now?
We're shooting a commercial for RPS.
And so they're trying to convince her that, he questions why he's there. So it's a big old con to try to get her to believe that it's a disease, not that he wants to cheat on everybody with him. And apparently his doctor has RPS as well.
I also have restless penis syndrome.
Hey, Heitzman, not part of the deal, buddy.
Given what we know about Jason's dating history during his time on the show, I have to wonder how much of this sketch was drawn from his real life. But anyway, this was another well-crafted sketch that started with a hint of a semi-dramatic slice of life, something you might have gotten in the 70s or late 80s, that feel, but turned into a really committed sophomoric gag and ending with a fourth wall dissolve. It started out as one of those semi-dramatic Marilyn Suzanne Miller pieces where just, 2 people talk about a relationship, and ended with something like the National Uvula Association sketch from season 1.
Yeah, and it has really good, very slow escalation. Just the complexity of this con to try and put one over on the wife, almost Machiavellian in design. There's one point where Bill is a spokesperson talking about that we expect to have a cure eventually.
But now there's hope. The RPS Foundation is committed to finding a cure for this debilitating disorder. With new medical breakthroughs happening every day, we think we may be just years away.
Decades.
Decades away. Won't you please support the RPS Foundation?
Yeah, that was a great one. That was a really unique thing that SNL hadn't tried before. And Bill's next appearance is the debut that Deej mentioned.
Ragazze e ragazzi, è tempo per la rivista della televisione con mio Vinny Vedecci.
The very first appearance of Vinny. Now, we have covered Vinny before, but we're still going to talk about this.
Well, Bill debuted this character in the Catherine Zeta-Jones episode from the previous season, where he was a Italian hotel manager, and here he makes his debut in his more or less regular form as an Italian talk show host, and it was a great official debut for this character, and Julia was a perfect first guest for him. His Kramer and Jerry impressions were great.
I gotta tell you, Jerry, that is a really nice suit, Jerry.
Really good.
You gotta get me out of here, Jerry. Please. I'm out.
Oh, wow.
As was his dubbing over Julia's part in Old Christine, and Maya as his daughter, just reciting the days of the week in semi-broken English.
Who we never see again.
Right.
Although the Jerry Seinfeld impression was actually supposed to be bad.
What's the deal with dry cleaning? You can't clean anything if it's dry.
Yeah, your Kramer was better.
Grazie, prego.
Oh, sure. Prego.
Prego! Prego!
Of course. Well, it's so bad that it kind of halfway looped around to being good. It was like a parody of bad Seinfeld impressions, which made it work. So it was an early installment of this sketch that seemed more focused on establishing its own format and setting rather than setting up the sleaziness of its main character, which would come later in future installments. And it seemed more focused on recreating the baffling absurdity of foreign talk shows to viewers from outside their culture, and it really serves this sketch as well as the vibe of this season, this episode, strongly.
The sheer talent of his masterful Italian gibberish. I was trying to see if I could do it again in preparation for this episode, and I objectively failed. It's just convincing enough to be real, but still not an easy thing to do. Another character premiere we have on this is the first appearance, the duo of Mike Underballs and Jeff, the crew member who has really good ideas and really wants to show them, but gives the person doing the PSA nothing but attitude. I would love to know the origin story behind that name. The subject of this PSA is getting an annual mammogram, and having experienced my first one about 2 years ago. Yes, I know it's important, but it is not the most comfortable thing in the world to have to go through.
We went from another sketch where Jason and Julia are standout performers to a sketch where Jason and Julia and Bill are standout performers. A low-key divisive sketch before this to a low-key terrific, as Ralph Nader would inspire That Week in SNL's Andrew Dick and Tim Cicali to say. This might be more a Sudeikis showcase, but once Hader suddenly shifts out of straight man mode, this really becomes a showcase for the two of them and how differently they play angry and frustrated off of each other and Julia. And Jason's various insults to Julia were great, especially his pointing the boom mic at her breast and crotch level. And besides all the various Jeffs, the best line from Bill was,
Okay, and I don't need a jingle on every bad take, okay?
Yes. Just the way that he says Jeff. Just the interplay between Mike Underballs and Jeff. And you can see a little bit of anxiety Bill kind of come into the fold. Because it's usually when he has his right hand kind of like sort of all kind of crooked up. But this is still season 32. So it stands to reason that things will just sort of go. He has to get used to the show. But definitely do love. Every time he says Jeff, just makes me happy. Sets of two sketches that Bill Hader has done on this is each one is right after the other. So I can imagine he had at least a couple of quick changes that night, because the wig he was wearing for Restless Penis is significantly different than the Vinny Vedecci wig. I think with CBS Cares and Home Boss, he's probably more using his own hair, which isn't quite as much of as a quick change, but yeah, he had a very busy night. So the last Bill exclusive is Homebots. Jason and Julia again together as a couple with Kristen and Bill, where they had just won the lottery, and their one extravagance was getting a home robot played by Will Forte. But as things go on, Will Forte's robot breaks down, so then they have to send in the repair robot played by Fred Armisen, and eventually that gets to them getting their robot sex on.
Thank you, repair bot. How can I ever repay you?
The usual is fine by me.
Affirmative. Releasing hydraulic fluid into robot penis.
Wait, did he just say robot penis?
Rerouting WD-40 to robot vagina.
Yeah, you really want to see this.
Okay. Hey. Sorry about that. Sorry. Homebot, repair bot, go to kitchen.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. I thought they were actually going to have sex.
Oh, they will.
Initiating 45-minute robot intercourse.
I'm sorry, but do we have to sit here and listen to this?
Oh, just relax. You can just ignore them.
Keenan come in as another kind of repair bot, and they all go into the kitchen, and there's like a robot three-way. Hasn't been one of my favorite sketches of this. I do kind of understand where, because they have the robot Fred announcing every single thing he does, and then Bill says, oh, he really goes into the details. Like, you really need to know that I'm grabbing the plate now while I'm doing this. But I guess that's just part of the comedy.
Yeah, this is obviously a very Will Forte-ish premise, considering his affinity for playing various robots throughout his SNL career, and the fact that he actually did audition for the show with an old trunk bit of his where he sings as a robot street performer about how he performs certain oral favors just for gold face paint. I gotta agree that with Deej that this wasn't one of my favorites. It's the type of Forte weirdness that I'm not typically a fan of, since it feels more like it's testing the audience's patience and boundaries and being truly weirdly funny. It seems more designed to get the type of audience reaction that the Vogelcheck sketches do than anything. Bill and Jason and Kristen and Julia were great at playing their disgust off them, and I did get that added to this, and I did get a kick out of Keenan coming in at the end just to utter the closing line.
Extreme robot, a three-way.
And we have one more Bill sketch, which I'm counting as a Bill sketch, because his voiceover, it can be heard through most of it. It's the search for the next Pussycat doll, where judges Robin Anton, played by JLD, some nobody named Mackenzie Jazz, played by Andy Samberg, and Little Kim, played by, of course, Kenan Thompson, lead the search for the most mediocre and unremarkable, moderately attractive female singers and dancers, including Polar Wiggin Rudolph, to join the Pussycat Dolls and just blend into the background perfectly against the lead singer. Wow, this really is 2007, huh? And
yes, it is. Start of the reality boom came along with a lot of competitive shows. CW did quite a lot of them, and I admit, I actually watched them. And confession time, I actually went to a reality TV convention in 2011.
Really?
Yes, it was a one-time thing they had called Reality Rock. I got to meet a few famous people. I got a picture somewhere of Eric Robert. So it was an interesting time. Pussycat Dolls, of course, is a group that started as a burlesque troupe based out of the Viper Room in Los Angeles, and then eventually evolved into the musical group. Cole Scherzinger, who originally came from the show Pop Stars.
Yeah, I'd say Pop Stars is a show I remember mostly for Mad TV's parody of it.
The UK started Pop Stars, And they did a version over here. There was the version they did it for 2 seasons in Canada. So Nicole Scherzinger was discovered during that show. Pop Stars was on the WB. So that was the group Eden's Crush. And then eventually she went to the Pussycat Dolls. So the other ladies were basically just window dressing.
Yeah, so I guess technically both those shows were on the same network. This is a Bill moment because Bill's the announcer, and from the way he pretty much spends 75% of this sketch's runtime laying out exactly what SNL's whole take is here.
This season on the new CW, today's hottest female group, the Pussycat Dolls, is searching for a brand new member.
I want this more than anything. This is my dream. This is literally the highest honor I can imagine.
An exhaustive search through the nation's dancers, singers, and pharmaceutical sales representatives has come down to only the very best. Will they be up to the challenge? To sort of sing and sort of dance. To not write songs and be passably attractive from a distance, but not detract attention from the lead singer.
It made this sketch feel like a watered-down version of something Mad TV or Family Guy would have done around this time. SNL doing this in the same episode as, well, a different sketch we'll mention later just shows that they weren't quite as removed from seasons 30 and 31 as I remembered at this point. And yeah, this sketch mostly consists of the same tired trash culture observations about reality competition TV and prefabricated, over-sexualized pop music girl groups you could find anywhere at this time, but I think the performances from the female cast were the only thing that it really had going for it and saving it. Sandberg did the most he could with his one and only line.
That was totally passable. You're on to the next round.
Keenan in drag as Little Kim. Yeah, it was standard operating procedure back then, but now seems like a grim sign of things SNL maybe going back to in season 51 now that Ego Wodum is out and Cam Patterson is somehow still in, but let's just all hope and pray that it doesn't come to that again.
Well, it's like I said on my new podcast, the Saturday Night Ladies with Sherry Fresco, that I'm cautious about this upcoming season of SNL. Not cautiously optimistic, just plain cautious. Julia Louis-Dreyfus did have a really good resemblance to Robin Antin and played that character very well, so.
Even if she needed heavy prosthetic lips to do it.
Well, if you've ever seen Robin Antin, she is very much like that. Well, anytime I get to hear Bill's voice, I'm always very happy, so.
You really are the segue queen, Deej. Since you mentioned your second podcast, Saturday Night Ladies, I'll just say that the other reason we chose this episode to review now is not just because it's a big Bill episode in season 32, but also because we thought it might be good synergy and stealth cross-promotion for Saturday Night Ladies, even if we could not get Deej's co-host Shari Fesco to be a guest here, because like most of the guests we've tried to line up for this podcast outside of John Schneider, the scheduling of it just didn't work out. It's an episode hosted by Julia Louis-Dreyfus with the cast that included Maya Rudolph, Kristen Wiig, and Amy Poehler. So it's truly some of the most notable Saturday Night Ladies in SNL history. So it would be a good time to talk about it. And for that reason, we're going to go over the rest of the highlights of this episode. But before we get to the rest of the ladies, we're going to get to the cold open. The SNL special report, Road to the White House, where Chris Rock weighs in on the presidential primary race, which was supposed to be just a weekend update commentary at dress rehearsal, and I genuinely wonder what the original cold open of this episode was going to be that made them decide that this worked better. And according to SNL transcripts, that must have been Sudeikis' Bush piece where he just talked about March Madness. And I can see why Lauren must have thought a sudden, unexpected former alumni cameo might have grabbed the audience's attention more. Just a little too bad that not a lot of Chris Rock's material stood out that well. I don't have a ton to say on this, except if you're familiar with Chris Rock's stand-up from any time period, this hits about all the specific beats you would expect. And if you're familiar with Chris Rock's takes on current events and culture in general, you could probably guess which presidential candidate Rock was endorsing at this time, if you knew who was running in 2007. I guess the basic premise of this seems to be white women have suffered like this, but black men have suffered like this, which I guess you can't say doesn't hold up today, since Bill Burr tackled this topic in his first SNL host monologue in 2020, and he was probably taking notes on this too. Too bad Burr's take on this topic came at a time when it would have been largely scrutinized on just social media and not just swept under the rug like Rock's was. One line that got me was Chris Rock saying that black men really love white women.
I mean, did you see Anna Nicole Smith's funeral? She had 6 black men pallbearers. I thought Farrakhan died.
And a couple of things that really don't hold up here that I have to mention. He talks about the Republicans, and he said Giuliani was running, who's great in a crisis. That doesn't hold up because he arguably helped create the crisis that America's been in on and off for the past decade. But the line about how Giuliani's like a pit bull who's great if you have a burglar but might eat your kids holds up way better than anyone could have imagined. The last line of this, speaking of things that really don't hold up today,
that Barack Obama will not only be the Democratic nominee for president, Barack Obama will be the next president of the United States, okay? And for those doubters out there who keep asking the question, is America ready for a black president? I say, why not? We just had
our word.
What?
But the fact that it's an unoriginal burn on George W. Bush that Carlos Mencia would blatantly plagiarize a year later, it's that aside, it's really not something any TV show could get away with today.
He definitely called it right that Obama was the next president, and in a lot of ways I wish he was still the president. As much as I hate to admit it, he's really not wrong in his line saying about the only people who hate white women is other white women. Can sometimes tend to get down on other people, and particularly there's a bit in Weekend Update where they're talking about women get together, and some that is usually fat talk, and then they go on to say, but then they get to introduce the guest with a quick shot of the view. But I always appreciate Chris Rock's style of bluntness. He comes from a knowledgeable point, and he's not wrong that, yes, women had to fight for a lot of things that we have today. The most they did with us, like in the suffragette movement, was trying to force feeding when you're trying to do a hunger strike. But I don't think any women were actually killed in the suffragette movement. He definitely has a point there.
Okay, let's move on to the monologue. As Deej mentioned, is Julia coming off her recent Emmy win for New Adventures of Old Christine. And she warns the audience to not judge recent candid footage of her too harshly.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't believe everything you see, because the media likes nothing more than distorting an innocent event until they make me, a person whom you know and love, look bad. I mean, for example, here I am at the Golden Globes.
And the Golden Globe goes to America Ferrera. Ugly Betty.
Who the is America Ferrera? Hey, Felicity, check and see if she's got her green card with her. Am I right? Don't clap, you ass.
Because the media loves to take down well-beloved celebrities like her. I mean, it's 2007, so jokes about trashy female celebrities behaving badly may have seemed played out by this point, but I'll be damned if Julia doesn't have the innate charm and likability to make this play well. Even her drunkenly vomiting into a wine glass while making green card jokes at America Ferrera. She's endlessly funny in a very primitive, unrefined shades of Selena Meyer type way here. She's the only funny woman I'd ever want to see exit a limo with a Britney Spears-like crotch shot that reveals a bush that's so massive that it spreads halfway across her inner thigh. She even managed to add class to that. But don't take these clips out of context because she's completely wasted. One of my favorite lines from Julia was,
I mean, they can even make a nice woman like that lovely Ann Coulter look like a monster. These people just want celebrities to look bad.
and I like how this is a very direct and to the point monologue. They just got in, got its laughs, and got out. Just got to keep up the pacing early on in the show.
Yeah, it's definitely some sarcasm to that Ann Coulter reference. Yeah, there was about the time when people like Britney Spears and other celebrities were getting caught in inappropriate situations. Definitely liked her monologue for the first episode she did rather than this one, but it does cover some interesting stuff, I think.
Okay, and next is a sketch about Oprah, where Maya Rudolph is Oprah, who interviews Rhonda Byrne, played by Amy Poehler, who is the author of The Secret.
It was a self-help book, and it's essentially saying that if you think about it, things will happen, which really has no scientific foundation at all. There was a lot of self-help books that are coming out around this time. I have no problem with the power of positive thinking. It's like the old adage of like when two people are praying to God, this person wants their team to win, this person wants their team to win. Which one gets the win? It was also around the time when Oprah had started up her book club, and I'm kind of surprised that she would promote something like this after what happened with the other book that turned out to be a lie. But there really is no good basis that this will actually work. There was one example of a Good Housekeeping article by Valerie Frankel, where some of the goals she reached, other things did not improve. It's like, you can't rely on just the power of positive thinking to get things done. You actually have to take action as well. I think The Secret is basically just someone trying to make a quick buck, essentially.
Yeah, well, the same could be said for any self-help book. And, I've never read The Secret. My only context for it were the few parodies I have of it I've encountered around this time. That this sketch, a Mad Magazine fake ad, the whole take was just, seriously, you can just sit around and daydream about all the crap you want. It's just that easy. The Simpsons did an episode on it 2 years later with Edna Krabappel. Well, it's, post-season 20, so my memories of it are very vague. Basically, the sketch, so we get Maya's Oprah, Amy Poehler's Rhonda Byrne, and they interview divorced housewife Pamela Headley, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Darfurian refugee Alessi Onoweja, played by Kenan Thompson, who discuss how the positive thinking in The Secret has not changed their lives, and are criticized by Oprah and Rhonda for letting their own negative energy bring them down. I would still say the overall message of this sketch is that you still need fame and wealth and social clout to make The Secret work for you. Otherwise, you appear as a mentally unstable loser with a tenuous grasp on reality in the eyes of others. That still resonates. The best example of that was Maya's Oprah saying she wanted to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a hot air balloon, so she just called her assistant and made that happen because she's Oprah and she's rich enough to do anything. And I like the small detail here of Julia's character having unexplained adult braces. And even though Amy was mostly the straight woman in the sketch, her deranged facial expressions paired with her labored Australian accent were something I got a kick out of. And Julia played her derangement well too, but this sketch made me think it's a shame that Amy Poehler didn't quite get as many chances to play crazy-eyed, not all there Australian women as Kate McKinnon did. Maya's Oprah didn't add too much here besides just some necessary historical context, and Keenan's part was fine, if not a bit too telegraphed for my liking.
Alessi, how are you?
Well, bad.
Well, let's talk about this, Alessi. Why do you think things are going badly?
Well, as you may or may not know, this region is 4 years into a brutal conflict which has claimed over 200,000 lives. The UN has refused to classify the conflict as a genocide, and while there is a current ceasefire, I don't think anyone thinks it's permanent.
Very negative.
Very negative.
Secret! Alessi, I know this is hard for you to hear, but your outlook is what's hurting you.
No, I think it's the Janja weed.
No, it's you.
Alessi, did you get the copy of The Secret we sent?
Yes.
And did you read it?
No.
Why not?
Because I ate it.
Otherwise, this is a pretty decent sketch.
This is one that goes on from, it could have been not quite as long. I would have reduced the Julia Louis-Dreyfus interview bit, gotten the Keenan sooner to get to the end. And of course we have A. Poehler, with of course first you see is the slightly unkempt hair, which leads to a lot of the idea that she's not exactly all there. Maya does her usual Oprah Winfrey thing. It's not one of her impressions I'm a fan of. I know what she's playing up the whole yelling thing. I never really watched Oprah back in the day. Maybe because, well, I wasn't working, so I didn't have much daytime television, but could have been a lot shorter, I think.
Yeah, and it was like a laser-focused pop culture theme sketch from this time, right after the monologue, which is pretty much the same thing. It's felt like Tina Fey was a guest writer this week, but, the end credits show that she wasn't. Move on to the next sketch, Monet, which I'll throw it over to Deej for this one, since she has all the proper, necessary historical context you would ever want for this.
It's Monex. This was a series of late night infomercials promoting gold based on a real commercial. We're going to play a bit of the original and then play a bit of Kristen Wiig's version. This is the original commercial.
US that few people dare to talk about. Not Wall Street, not the media, not even your accountant. Yet this crisis could directly threaten your financial future. Now, on this free DVD from Monex, a dozen respected financial analysts speak openly about how gold can not only protect your wealth, but potentially help you profit in these uncertain times. To receive your free gold DVD from Monex, call 1-800-949-GOLD. Over the last few years, gold has solidly outperformed the Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ, and most likely your retirement accounts as well. That's right. Since 2001, gold has increased over 130%. Get the facts on gold.
Now we have the Kristen version.
What? You mean you've never experienced it? Then call Monex now for this informative brochure and VHS tape that will show how you can invest in gold. Did you know that in the past 12 years the value of gold has gone up a little bit? I love touching gold. I would never do this with mere paper money. Gold. I love it. There's no better time to invest in gold than right around the time that it is now. Look around my living room. Every surface is covered in 100% real gold.
So, definitely has the cadence down from the original person.
I do like the gag of just the unaddressed Goldie Hawn photo in her living room.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what the audience laughed at. That was the laugh visual. And right before that, she picked up a glass of orange juice. She's not drinking gold, I wish, but it's orange juice, but the brand is Florida Gold. And the clip you played, which our audience would only hear, but the clip you played was from TikTok, and it had a caption, Kristen Wiig SNL commercial parody, only aired once in America. I don't see why this would need to be edited out of repeats. It's not exactly conspiracy theory rock. So no real political reason to remove this. I wouldn't say it didn't work comedically. It did. This was very well acted on Wiig's part. She underplayed her mania to the exact right hilt. And it seemed Kristen knew when to really rein it in here, but probably helps that this is a pre-tape and another focused impression of a specific pitch woman from this time. Two of those in a row. There's a lot of sketches are paired together in this episode. It's kind of an unofficial theme of the night.
I'm not really sure how this was received by the audience. When the sketch ended, there was some very tentative clapping that it started with. I get what she was going for, and after playing the comparison of the two, she definitely caught this person. Although it's interesting that the commercial is DVD, yet this version is VHS. But then again, it could have been the sample that I have was a later edition that had a DVD rather than VHS. But I don't think this was very well thought of by at least by the studio audience.
Yeah, and before that, I'll just throw in a few stray observations about Snow Patrol performing You're All I Have and Chasing Cars. You're All I Have lies somewhere between indistinguishable from all the other bland mid-aughts power pop out there, and what if Mumford & Sons did indie rock instead of buttfolk? That's the best way I can describe that song. And, Chasing Cars is the song that most people remember from this group. It's typical sad Garden State-ish indie rock that fits right in with the alt indie rock trends of this era. And now we can talk about Weekend Update. We guest commentaries. We get Judge Larry Seidlin, played by Fred Armisen, who cries while reading a list of names of federal attorneys fired by Alberto Gonzales for not exhibiting enough loyalty to George W. Bush, which I believe Alberto Gonzales was America's Attorney General at this time, and firing people for not exhibiting enough loyalty to a sitting Republican president. There's a few jokes about that here, and they all play way differently in 2025. But the main joke of Armisen's bit is him telling a story about encountering elephants and monkeys with red plastic asses in the Bronx Zoo as a young peanut seller, which kind of saved this from being typical Fred Armisen shtick from this era that's easy to tune out for being just overly long and self-indulgent with a heavy New York accent. Yeah, I was going to mention this was a reoccurring impression for Fred Armisen.
This judge who presided over the Anna Nicole Smith trial regarding the assets of her aged husband. Apparently this judge had a lot of different theatrics, would go on tangents, sometimes would actually cry about things. I did watch a little bit of the original judge stuff, and they definitely exaggerated it. This is not only his second appearance as this judge, but the second consecutive episode with this one in it.
Then there's a bit where Amy takes a shot to celebrate St. Patrick's Day and drunk dials Seth from across the desk.
A new study was released. I am just to... Because she'll keep calling. Hello?
Hey, what are you doing? Are you out? Are you having fun?
No, actually, I'm at the update desk telling a joke right now, so I'm going to hang up on you.
No, I'm going to hang up on you.
A new study was released earlier this week,
You don't hang up on me, Myers. You're not better than me. Well, you think you're so great? I'm from New Hampshire.
Cute and focused enough to not feel too self-indulgent on Amy's part. It definitely had the energy of a bit where one performer is just desperately trying to get the other performer to break, but the audience also feels like they're in on the joke.
I enjoyed this bit. This is another traditional trope of Weekend Update where the tree frog story that no one has ever been able to tell gets interrupted by Oprah or someone else. In this case, doing entire St. Patrick's Day from getting drunk to being drunk, and then the next day. And when she's offered coffee, she refuses it.
Have some coffee, all right?
No, I want some coffee. This is my idea.
I'm going to sober her up. It usually works pretty soon.
Amy had the lion's share of the better jokes this week. There's a joke about Halliburton
Announced this week that it is moving its corporate headquarters from Houston, Texas to Dubai. A Halliburton spokesman said Dubai was chosen because of its convenient location just outside the long arm of the law.
Joke about the fat talk and the view that Deej mentioned, and Seth's only standout joke was the one about salmon and grizzly bears.
A new study says that eating salmon is not only good for your heart, but can improve your disposition, making you more agreeable. Refuting this study, grizzly bears.
Amy also had great jokes about ski masks, James Brown, Angelina Jolie, and stray cats.
Well, the one bit I did like was cockfighting being made illegal.
A new law was signed in New Mexico Monday that outlaws cockfighting in the state, as chickens everywhere deserve the right to live free in a 2-foot cage before a machine cuts off their heads so we can eat them. Amsterdam City Council gave permission for the owner of a 150-year-old chestnut tree that comforted Anne Frank while she was in hiding to cut it down. Well, it's official. Anne Frank cannot catch a break. I knew I was in trouble when you guys didn't like the chicken joke.
It was fun when they occasionally reference, like, this didn't quite work. Yeah, I knew we were kind of gone.
And the last sketch in this episode, the last thing we could talk about is Deep House Dish, Ooh-wee, with Keenan as DJ Dynasty Handbag and Andy Samberg as T-Shane, who welcome edgy girl group Leggins, played by Polar, Wig, and Rudolph. Julia Louis-Dreyfus as singer DJ Wells, and Jason Sudeikis as DJ Quality. This might be one of the more low-key, divisive sketches of this era from two of the most low-key, divisive writers of the second half of SNL's 50-year run, James Anderson and Kent Sublette. Personally, I'm not as down on these sketches as some were at the time. If you weren't a fan of the less matured, less grown-up pre-season 38 Keenan, I can see why you might have a problem with these. And while I always thought Keenan's character was the biggest demerit of these sketches, the songs were usually just ridiculous enough to work for me here. Plus, the season 32 versions of this sketch worked better for me because obviously Andy Samberg was a better dumb, goofy sidekick to Keenan than Rachel Dratch's character, Tiara Z. And these sketches just felt more punched up and focused in general by this point. That being said, Leggins did a fine job of answering the musical question, what if the Ting Tings were also the Bangles and Climax?
Get your hands off my man, you heard it, get off. Get him way off. Just ask the DJJ, no one wants your BJJ. Take your fucking knees back to Howard Beach. Get your hands off my man, you heard it, get him off. Get them way off.
Julia and Jason's songs were great. I liked Julia's whole character in this, and I liked Samberg's character admitting to being a guest at Julia's disastrous hot tub chili party. And we get to see Jason break out some of his future What Up With That dance moves. That was very fun. One thing I could have done without was Keenan's direct message into the camera to Britney Spears.
I want to get serious here for a moment. This is a very special message to someone we all love. Britney Spears, we wish you all the best. Just remember that you have two very precious things in your life right now, and they both need you to get better as soon as you can. Your career and your fans.
But Andy's jokes about her freshly shaved head were a funny enough counter to that.
Deep House Dish is one of those recurring sketches that a lot of people dump on, but I still have a soft spot for them. If anything, for the sheer creativity in the songs that they make for this. Be able to do 2 or 3 decent sounding techno songs always works for me. Keenan just does his Keenan thing. I do agree. Andy Samberg, nothing against Rachel Dratch, because I love Rachel. I think she got a raw deal with the whole 30 Rock debacle. Andy makes a better counterpoint. I will be a defender of the Deep House Dish.
Overall, the episode in general, like most SNL episodes we've reviewed from this time period on so far, There's a couple of well-remembered and often replayed classics in this that somehow got managed to not get lost in the shuffle of more than a few bits that don't hold up. The same thing can be said about this episode too. Fortunately, this episode didn't have a lot of blatantly noticeable punching down as much as just a running theme of, sorry folks, this is just where our culture and politics are right now, contributing to what doesn't hold up. I'll say Julia Louis-Dreyfus was the ideal host to carry this episode and bring the best out of this cast, especially the women, and thankfully this whole episode had an infectious energy to it that was somehow missing from Julia's first hosting stint a year earlier, and it also probably helps in that regard that they were too far away from the end of the season to be completely burnout yet.
Well, the bill highlights for me were the debut of Vinny Vedecci and the debut of Mike Underballs. Just the Jeff always being a douche, especially anybody in a crew would not be able to get away with talking to the star of what they're doing like that. Jeff immediately taking offense to, so she's trying to be sympathetic. It's hard being a boom guy because holding up a boom microphone can be tiring. And he immediately takes offense to it where he says, well, I have a name. Towards the end, you actually had Bill trying to defend Jeff. So there's an interesting dynamic between Mike and Jeff just always makes me smile. And Vinny Vedecci, I love Vinny Vedecci. He's, I do, though, prefer eventually with Bobby Moynihan as his son.
I agree with all your takes there. And that's this episode of We Heart Haters. So, Deej, why don't you let the audience know with what we've decided on for next week's episode?
Yeah, so speaking of recurring characters, we're doing another character spotlight. This time, we're doing Greg the Alien, which was Bill's first attempt at a recurring character. I love it. There's lots of other people who feel it's underrated. The joy and craziness that is Greg the Alien, which was created by him, and with the help of John Mulaney. We mentioned what we'll call our sister podcast, because, well, it's called Saturday Night Ladies. This is going to be my first attempt at a weekly podcast. We're going to be reviewing the episodes, and it's all from, of course, the women's perspective. Because I mentioned in our preview episode that we had up last week, where the only trouble with all the SNL podcasts is a lot of dudes.
I was waiting for a good opportunity to quote that, and you are the segue queen, Deej. So thank you for working that in better than I could have.
The previous episode came out a little later than I wanted it to, mainly because I was sick for 4 days and just trying to get everything all synced together with editing 2 things, which is a crazy week. So, Saturday Night Ladies will be releasing on Tuesdays, and this podcast, We Heart Hater, will be releasing alternate Fridays. So this concludes our review and overview of Season 32, Episode 15, and as usual, I am Deej Barons, and will continue to be.
And I will still be Casey Killingsworth until I'm informed otherwise. And then We Heart Hater now forever, because that's what we do.
Yes, We Heart Hater. Hater is my first SNL love.
Yeah!
Thank you for listening to We Heart Hater. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We Heart Hater is a presentation of Wacky Notion Productions. Created by Deej Barons. Hosted by Deej Barons and Casey Killingsworth. Recording and editing by Deej Barons. Intro and outro music by Music Unlimited, used under Creative Commons license, courtesy of Pixabay.com.